Welcome to the High Volume Hiring Podcast. I'm Stephen Rothberg, the founder of College Recruiter job search site. At College Recruiter, we believe that every student and recent grad deserves a great career. This podcast features news, tips, case studies, and interviews with the world's leading experts about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to high volume hiring. Thanks for joining us. Today's guest is Gerry Crispin of CareerXroads, who can best be described as a lifelong student of hiring, lover of fine wine, and maker of probably the world's best Sunday sauce. Gerry, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's one of my best introductions. I love it.
And for the record, I've never had your Sunday sauce, but I've seen it through Zoom. So
there you go. Well, we something to look forward to.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have a bucket list, and that's, I guess, should be on mine. So before we get into sort of the real meat of the conversation, so that the two or three people in the world of recruiting who might not know you personally, tell us a little bit about how you got into recruiting, some of the jobs you've had over the years, and then also the work that you do today with CareerXroads.
You don't have enough time for that. So this is like my 53rd year in recruiting. I became enamored.
So you get 53 seconds.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, when I went to college, I got an engineering degree and then began studying industrial organizational behavior in graduate school, which I spent 6 years doing. And while I was doing that, in order to pay for food and stuff, I was the associate director of career services at Stevens Institute of Technology, and I became fascinated by this whole journey of how one recruits and what a career looks like, and all of those kinds of things. And really, that started the journey. I became fascinated by it. I got most of my PhD, went to work for Johnson & Johnson for 10 years, was a loose cannon there for doing an awful lot of things. Have too many stories to tell. Worked for another career in effect, recruitment marketing. In those days, there were recruitment agencies. One, they still are, but they call themselves different things now. And for 10 years, built a division, if you will, on the East Coast for Shaker Advertising. And then started getting fascinated by this thing called the internet, and began writing books about that you were in, actually before very long, about what was happening in terms of emerging technology from about 95 through about 2004. And then pivoted. So those books were very successful. I was a bookseller.
Yeah.
and
you were the Stephen King of recruiting books.
Yes, that did. People did get irritated and frightened by what I would write about them, for sure. So yes, it was the Stephen King, is a really good way of putting it. And then, I got tired of consulting and doing all that kind of stuff. And I realized for CareerXroads, that people wanted to talk to each other, that are peers who were recruiting. They everything was so moving so fast and so confusing in terms of how to recruit digitally, if you will, and with technology, that they wanted to talk to each other in real time and in an environment in which they wouldn't be outed for being screwed up and not doing it as well as they would like people to believe. And so that started CareerXroads, and it really was bringing together small groups of talent acquisition leaders to share amongst themselves quietly what was keeping them up at night, and to listen to each other's stories, if you will, about what they shared in trying solutions. And hopefully with one of those solutions being inspiring them to do something to move forward. And so I learned quickly, to finish this off over the last 20 some odd years, that there is a group of people who are passionate about recruiting, compelled to improve what they do, have critical thinking skills, so can challenge one another in a way that's positive, and are willing to share unconditionally.
Mm.
And so my challenge for the last 22 years has been identifying who those people are, encouraging them or giving them the experience of engaging one another under those kinds of conditions, and kind of building a community around that of people who care about each other enough to help each other be successful. And so that's kind of been what sustained me in my later years and keeps me in the game, really, from that perspective.
Very cool. So one of the things that's always fascinated me about the group of people in this community at Career Crossroads on the employer side is that supportive, that in my view non-judgmental. It's like, thank you for sharing the problem with us. Let's work together to solve it. Even if it doesn't help me personally or my organization, I want to help you solve that problem because I want this whole world to be better.
Yeah.
There just seems to be a real passion around that. I know I've had the good pleasure of knowing a number of people in that colloquium. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing that any of them has ever shared with me about what goes on behind those doors is whether they had a glass of wine or enjoyed dinner as much as you did. And so the confidentiality is critical.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never heard anyone directly say anything to me or indirectly like that. It's sort of like, oh yeah, you didn't hear it, but so and so was blabbing about blah blah blah, and
Right.
that's unusual. I mean, these are people who
It
know a
is.
lot of people and they're very well connected. So you guys have done a really good job of sort of selecting the people, and I think instilling a culture in
I think
that
it's a
group. Last,
continuous challenge, though, and I do think
Mhm.
that everybody, including yourself, builds pieces of that,
Yeah,
in their own kind of thing, even though their model isn't specifically that. So my model is specifically building community, but I
yeah,
do think that the approach that you have as a leader in your company and how you treat your clients lends to the same kind of thing. It's just
yeah.
that you don't focus in on the events that bring them together to do that, to actually share amongst each other, as opposed to some other aspect of that event, curating content specifically. I
Hmm.
do think that there's a future for how companies, because of this pandemic, et cetera. I do think this idea of community is becoming more is emerging more as a critical component for what people want in their work life.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, they would compartmentalize and say, I'm not going to get that out of my job, so screw it. I'll just go to work, keep my head down, come home, and then try to build community with my family and my friends and my community, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that when you spend 8 hours or 10 hours a day, 4 or 5 days, maybe even 6 days a week, to make a living these days, and both spouses, if you will, are doing that,
Hmm.
people are starting to rethink that and say, that's a third of my life. Why am I ignoring the opportunity to have something that's important to me? And
Yeah.
so I think young people, particularly, are asking more good questions about those issues as they start their career. And I think as folks mature, they're starting to learn the same thing. They're starting to ask themselves, like, why am I going from this job to the next job with the same pain in the ass work and people
Yep.
that I have to deal with? I really want to find a place where I care about the people that I'm with in a whole different way.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think the pandemic has had a lot to do with it. The last couple of years, we've all sort of reevaluated what's really
Mm-hmm.
important in life. And having that corner office or the fancy job title or whatever there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a lot more to life than that. So let's talk a little bit about Career Crossroads for people
Mm-hmm.
who don't know. Peer-to-peer invitation only meetings. just corporate staffing leaders. So you don't have vendors like College Recruiter in the room. Although about a year ago, you launched the talent solutions community, and College Recruiter was one of the 15 or so starting members. There are like a couple of dozen now.
21 now. Yeah.
21 now. Okay. And, so close, 21.
We'll get to 30 by the end of the year.
There you go. Okay. So 2.5, we'll 2.5 dozen. We'll round up. And, and again, so the meetings, the members that come together are sharing information, asking for assistance, sometimes sharing, tips about different tools they're using, et cetera.
Yeah.
And I can just imagine the conversations, those meetings must be sometimes really mundane, but probably mostly really fascinating.
I think, they're run by themselves. I mean, we basically tee up an environment in which people engage. In fact, I just finished one on branding, and we had it. So we've evolved. So we've got a little bit of a guest now, where we try to bring somebody in who's got some data and information that makes good sense, and then primarily among just the employer TA leaders, there's an open sharing of something that they've either solved recently or are really kind of proud of trying, that it seems to be collecting some data that's working on whatever it is, sourcing, branding, analytics, whatever the theme might be. And then you get some pretty pointed discussions from the peanut gallery as to how the hell did you do that? How did you convince your leaders to invest that amount of money in doing that? Or why are you spending more money that's going bad on that? So we hear some interesting kinds of things, and it's little things that, for the digital world, because we've been doing it mostly now digitally, right? We're going back to some face-to-face. We used to basically require no more than 40 to 45 people hosted by one of our members for a day and a half, and now we're doing lots of 1-hour sessions. But we actually require everybody to be seen. It's like, don't come if you can't be seen. So if you're telling me that, you just got up and you don't think you look good or whatever, get over it. But I want to see an audience that is engaged, energized, and either listening to one another.
Yeah.
As opposed to multitasking behind a wall in which you can't be seen. So those are little things that force the intensity of people engaging one another.
We'll be back right after this break.
Whether you're a payroll pro or an employee wanting to understand your paycheck better, we've got you covered. Tune into It's About Payroll for expert insights on payroll trends and compliance, or check out It's About Your Paycheck, the go-to podcast for employees looking to understand their pay and rights. 2 great shows, 2 great hosts. Listen now, brought to you by Work Defined, where payroll meets clarity.
Welcome back to the High Volume Hiring Podcast. Just as an aside, I just talked to a young adult who interned at a company this summer and is kind of getting close to the end of it. And she's like, I will never, ever go to work for that company ever again. And I'm going to tell all of my younger classmates, siblings, cousins, everybody, don't have anything to do with them. All the work was remote, which given COVID and the nature of the work, that wasn't really an issue. But what was an issue was that every day they would have a stand-up call on Zoom, kind of make sure everybody's on the same page, and this is what we need to accomplish today. Great, good communication, good mentoring, good coaching. Nobody had their cameras on. She has never seen her boss. And she's had a call every day with him for a couple of months. She has no idea. And it's so impersonal. The word that she used to describe it was that she feels like a drone. And that's just not a good hiring practice. Anyway, so CareerXroads launched in 96, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. I just came across the first talk I ever gave the slide deck for it, and it was December 1995, and it was right after that we kind of created this thing called CareerXroads and began engaging in putting together books about how emerging technology was going to change talent acquisition.
Cool. So in the 26 years, what one or two things? What has changed in high volume hiring from 1996 to 2022? Like one or two things that that would really jump out you like, wow, this is so different now than then.
Boy, I think of a normal distribution, and so there should be some kind of center thing that changed. 80% has changed.
Sure.
I would say 80% is not changed.
Mm.
I would say more like there's 20% that has really impacted results. And the 20% probably is the use of automated kinds of technologies that allow for us to expand our ability to reach and engage and communicate with larger numbers of people. So that's the real positive of what's out there. You could say that for the recruiter has access now to so much more information. If you think about some of the technologies out there that allow for them to almost see the universe of all the people that they could possibly consider for a job. They almost have the capability to say the universe is 122,000 people who do this.
Yeah.
And 80% of them, I have their contact information, or I know how to get their contact information.
As do all of my competitors for that talent too.
Yes, for you, as all of your competitors, right? So there's that. The problem now is the human part of how do I build relationships with people? When do I start? I used to give a talk in which I said something like, for every 100,000 kids entering high school, only 80% will graduate in 4 years from high school. I mean, there's just this dropout rate, right?
Yeah.
And of the 80% that graduate, only half of them will begin college.
Right.
So you're now down to 40% of the 100,000. And of the 40% that start, only 20% or a little less, 18%, will graduate from college in 5 years. And of those 18%, only 112, I think, will be mechanical engineers. And of the 112 mechanical engineers, of the 100,000 that started from high school, only 10 will be women. And of those 10, only 5 will remain a mechanical engineer after 3 years. So if I'm a recruiter, the question is not, how hard is this? The question is, when should I start talking to those 5? High school, college, when in college, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the issue is broader than I've got an opening, I need to fill it. How many people are available to fill this job? The question is, how do I influence change so that there's more women, more mechanical engineers, or more percentage of women, more mechanical engineers, if that's what we need? And obviously developers is the hot thing now, and nurses is the hot thing now. So people are thinking not just how do I hire a nurse, but how do we make nursing a more attractive career, or change nursing as a career to be more attractive and more satisfying for the people who are in it. And same with teachers, same with whatever. And we don't think holistically about recruiting in that way, and employers don't think of investing beyond a very narrow scope of what are the tools that you need. And so when you start thinking about that, there's so much more that we need to change in order to make this journey for all of us a much more satisfying one, a fairer one in terms of selection, if you will. So we still have, enormous concern on the part of a candidate. If I survey 100 candidates and ask them what was the experience that you had in your last set of interviews, going to a company, how many of you would say that the outcome was, in your opinion, fair? And the answer is not going to be good. So recruiters are not viewed much more highly than politicians. And so when you start thinking about what's changed in 20 years, to go back to your question, there are things that have changed. But has the perception of recruiting changed much? Only in little places where we've, made an impact, where we've influenced companies to be more transparent to the candidates about what we're doing to them, for them, and with them, so you come up with better decisions. How many companies actually share their decision process with the candidates who didn't get the job? Not many. So my point is, I think there's 10 to 20% that's actually changed for the good, and pretty much 80% that still remains to be changed, to make this process, our profession and our industry, a powerful motivator, if you will, for the people who experience it.
Yeah. And, just put it another way, if I can paraphrase part of what you were referring to, is the organizations that are having a hard time finding available labor need to question what they can do to increase the amount of labor that's available. If they can increase the size of that pie and you keep your slice the same percentage of that pie, that you're just going to have a bigger slice at the end of the day.
We should be increasing the pie for everyone. And if we did that collectively, it would be a lot better. But we'd also have to answer questions collectively about what is a living wage for high volume jobs that may not require the same level of skills that we invest in, getting engineers, up and running, kind of thing. We need and are we looking at the potential, and are we investing in the education of people to go beyond a bare minimum, but capable of learning much more, and then investing in them at that base level, and helping them learn to a point where they become capable of doing the job that we are looking for. So we have a lot of issues that we have to deal with. We accept, in some high volume jobs, 100% turnover. Why do we do that? Why do we do that? We could. What if why aren't we looking at ways to invest in retaining some of the high volume that we've got, so it isn't such high volume next time around? And the friction for people wanting that job, who are fully capable to be fully engaged in that job, would be different. And so the experience of the people who are customers of that high volume job, is so much better from that perspective. So I find our ability to do these kinds of things really going to be important in the next few years, in how we put together the development of people as a motivator for hiring them. That I promise that we're going to get you up to this level, and this is how we're going to lead you. That we're going to be more servant leaders. That in your job, the bosses will come around, and the only thing they're going to say is, "How can I help you?" And not just your boss. Any boss in that company should be coming around in the jobs that are critical, like that high volume jobs, and they should be just saying, "How can I help you? What would make your job easier? What would make your job better?" As opposed to observing you in a way that says, "Oh, I'm catching you making a mistake. Let me tell you what your mistake is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And well, before we wrap up, just one very quick story. One of my kids worked at a Dairy Queen when he was a teenager, and worked there for flipping. Basically, well, he said, we don't really cook here. We kind of assemble. And it was sort of, it more closely resembled a manufacturing facility than a restaurant, as in his description of it. And he said that by the time he left, it was 7 months after he started, almost to the day, that he found out that the average employee, hourly worker, not the management, but the cashiers, the people assembling the food, et cetera, they were there for an average of 3 months. So he outlasted them at 7 months. He would more than doubled what they usually see. And in that 7 months, he had 3 different managers. And they could really solve a lot of their recruiting problems by having better retention practices and treating people more than just as drones. So, Gerry, before we leave off, people want to get a hold of you, learn more about CareerXroads. What should they do?
Well, in Google, if you type in Gerry Crispin, Crispin, you will find me pretty easily. If you go to LinkedIn and you type in the same thing, you'll find me very, very easily. And I think I have my phone number, my email, and all that kind of stuff. Rather than Gerry@cxr.works, which is kind of my email address. But I think it's easy to find me.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I, whether it's good or bad, we're pretty transparent. Thank you so much for joining us today on the High Volume Hiring Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Rothberg, of job search site College Recruiter. Each year, we help more than 12 million candidates find great new jobs. Our customers are primarily Fortune 1000 companies, government agencies, and other employers who hire at scale and advertise their jobs with us. You can reach me at steven@collegerecruiter.com. The High Volume Hiring Podcast is a co-production of Evergreen Podcasts and College Recruiter. Please subscribe for free on your favorite app. Review it. 5 stars are always nice. And recommend it to a couple of people you know who want to learn more about how best to hire at scale. Cheers.